So Creative Dundee is an organisation that I co-founded 10 years ago as a blog. We just simply started talking about what was happening across the city in terms of arts and culture. I was frustrated that a lot of people were moving on from the city and wanted to do something about it. Now, 10 years later, we're an organisation that's based just next door. If you want a wee sneak peek at lunchtime, do let me know. We work in a co-working space next door with some brilliant other organisations, including Neon Digital Arts, Biome Collective, Red Pepper Events, lots of other different creative and cultural organisations. And what we do is basically amplify and connect the city's creativity. So of course there's quite a lot going on just now. I passed the V&A at 4 o'clock on Saturday and there's still a massive queue to get in, which is pretty incredible. But there's so much more obviously happening in and around the city. And increasingly Creative Dundee is getting more involved in citizen-based projects. So that's why I'm really excited about what's to come later on. So that's us. What else was going to say? I'm just going to point out toilets and things like that. So there is a toilet just over there. There's also toilets back out in the main foyer. So if you head into the main foyer, you head straight to the back, up 3 stairs, go left, leave a breadcrumb trail before you go. You'll find them, but there's many more toilets there. If you need anything from today about the venue, etc., just ask me. That's no problem at all. There's plenty plug sockets sort of dotted around at the back there. We've got a couple of power cables and things. No fire alarms, but there are fire exits just over there. So we'll all duck out there and head to the car park. I think that's it. So it is my delight to see you all here today. I know how stretched time can be, but I'm really excited about what's going to be achieved today. So without further ado, that's the kind of lineup today. I'll put this up on screen later, but we're going to hear from Colin Freeman after we have a brief introduction from the Life and Data team. Then we'll hear from Nina and Eric, and then we'll hear from our own Claire Defer at Creative Dundee, and then we'll have some lunch. Then we'll hear from Clive Gilman, then Alan Russell, and then we're going to wrap up and close, because I know that some people are coming from quite far away, and because the V&A is just along the road there, if you did want to visit it, then it is just 10 minutes away, and there shouldn't be massive queues. So that's the idea of today. So, can I pass over to Greg and Eddie, please?
Thank you very much for coming along. We're so pleased to have you all here today. I will, together with my colleague Greg Singh, just introduce a little bit of what we have done with this research network called Life in Data. So this is a research network that was originally funded almost 2 years ago by the Royal Society of Edinburgh. And our concern initially was around ideas of data literacy. So as you will see, you have all the information there that has to do with our website and the project. And initially the name of the project was Life in Data, Literacy, Openness, Education Policy in Creative Data Innovation in Scotland. So, and then that's, yes, a little bit of information about this event, and my colleague Greg Singh will talk a little bit more about what we have done so far. So it is undeniable that data pretty much mediates every part of our everyday lives, okay? From the way in which we use our credit cards, to the way in which we engage with online platforms to buy goods, to buy products, all the way to Google search, search platforms, Spotify, music that we listen, everything is generating vast amounts of data. Not to mention that also wearable devices such as iPad and things like that, conversational devices such as Siri or Alexa are also normally collecting vast amounts of data, to the point that we have seen an increase that is unprecedented in terms of how many transactions, how many millions of engagement, how many millions of different interactions occur every second and minutes on the web. So data predominantly has been approached in society as a commodity, has been something that has been regarded for years as the new oil, to be harvested, to be harnessed. And that's predominantly, there's some sort of neoliberal approach that we have seen in academia. It's basically just using data as a way of generating income and growth. But the way in which we see data and this project predominantly is like this: data seems to be surrounding us, database seems to be around everything and everyone. Without us completely being aware of that, data is being generated by every move that we perform in society. So far, governments have been quite good at putting forward an agenda for data access, for increasing access to data, for increasing participation. This is, as you might recall, the 2013 Group of 8 meeting where leaders of the most industrialized countries decided to create the Open Data Charter. Okay, the Open Data Charter was meant to open up data and government and make government more transparent. So what happened so far is that access hasn't equated completely the capacity of individuals and citizens to understand that data, to actually make meaningful decisions or to understand the decisions that have been made from data. So what we have seen is that open data has an emphasis on democratizing data, but really the data inside is that the intelligence that is derived from the data only resides and is available to a few, either data scientists, computing scientists, normally geeks that that have an understanding of how to use the data. And the problem is that data is often used in decision making at different levels of government, corporations. So what we're trying to really do is to start from the basis and try to help people to gain an awareness of what data can achieve and data can inform, all the way up to what is called data wisdom, okay, to the understanding that a few have. So in that sense, we are trying within this project to foster data literacy, or to discuss what are ways of doing data literacy. And data literacy is the ability to understand this, for instance, or more simply to make sense of a chart or a graph. Normally we're able to understand in simple terms this, but this is a little bit more difficult. So across the 2 years that we've been working on this, we came up with this working definition of data literacy. And to us, data literacy refers to the abstract understanding of data as social construct, to understand the role of data in mediating our relationships to one another and to the world around us. So data literacy is not just the instrumental understanding of this and how this generates insight, but also is understanding more critically data in these terms, and I think the revelations of Cambridge Analytica made this quite evident, that we were not fully aware of dangers and the challenges that data will impose in us as well. But it's also understanding this in a more abstract level, understanding that, for instance, when we're engaging online, there are a number of algorithms that are depicting a way of life, depicting a reality that is precisely not the one that we should be engaging with. So my colleague Rick Singh will continue now, talking a little bit more about the project.
Thanks, Ed. So as Andy said, the Life and Data Network has worked with a number of organisations in various sectors to arrive at a kind of multi-sectoral understanding of what data literacy might mean. And the way that we've done this is to work with network partners such as the SCVO, SQA, Creative Dundee now as well, which is great, Creative Sterling, and Young Scott, amongst others. And we've formulated a series of objectives that we want to map across this understanding of what data literacy might mean across a multi-sector environment, and then to run a series of workshops, which workshop some of the ideas and give us a bit more of an understanding of how those different sectors might kind of give us and each other some insight into what data literacy might mean. So the original objectives when we first started our project a couple of years ago were to map how data literacy is currently understood and how understandings can shift depending on context. So this is what Eddie was referring to in terms of that socially aware kind of aspect of data. So it's always within an environment, always within a social context. The extent to which data literacy is fostered in the education sector and in the skills sector. So we're thinking about how a more kind of instrumental understanding of data literacy, if you like, so the way in which people actually work with data and how we would get people to work with data might start at a fairly early age and then go through school leavers and into adult education and lifelong learning. What it means for local governance, for education policy, and for lifelong learning, and also what the best ways are to encourage the development of a creative and inclusive data literate community. So all of these objectives tie together to create a sense of, okay, well, this is what data literacy means to various sectors, but also this is what it could mean for everybody in a kind of mutual understanding within that context. So, as I say, there were a number of knowledge exchange workshops that we ran. This is the last in the series of knowledge exchange workshops. And each of the knowledge exchange workshops had some kind of question or some kind of issue that we wanted to address. So, the first one, mapping data life. How can we better embed data literacy within the open data strategies of Scottish cities? Focused on bringing together representatives from various local authorities across Scotland, and then working with a couple of case studies and a couple of presenters who came in to talk about some case studies that were very kind of innovative and very pioneering in the way in which open data is used. So for example, we had Brett Goldstein from the municipal Chicago district, who was the data officer who put together a package for ensuring that data could be used in local governance to facilitate public services across the city of Chicago. We also had representatives from the city of Helsinki come in to talk through what they've been doing in the last few years in relation to records management and open data. The second workshop was mapping data literacy. So how can we define data literacy from multiple and sector-specific contexts? So that was the key workshop from which we derived our kind of working understanding of data literacy that Eddie spoke to a moment ago. Then the KE4 was uncovering data awareness. So what are the minimum competences or knowledge bases necessary for citizens to engage with data in everyday life? That came specifically from the first two workshops. And then finally, in February of this year, we ran a workshop in Stirling, which is called Big Ideas from Small Cities. So this was looking at how data literacy can enhance our understanding of the places we live in and our sense of community and belonging. And out of that, we kind of thought, right, well, actually, it would be really, really interesting to have a workshop in another city where we bring together people from different sectors who've been working with data, specifically on projects within Scotland, and ways in which we could learn from each other and learn from those stories and try and get a more grounded understanding of how data works in everyday life, in working contexts, but also in public-facing contexts as well. So that all kind of maps together in today's workshop, hopefully. I'm really hoping that will. I'm pretty sure it will, in fact. Coming up just the end of this week, actually, we have the first in our series of public dissemination events. We've got a couple of others that are coming up in the next few months. So looking forward, we have a hackathon-style event, which we're calling the Data Jamboree. That will happen, I think it's slated for December. And out of that, we're going to produce some data art and some outputs of various descriptions that we're putting together for an open data exhibition in the new year. To start off some of those aspects, though, we have a conference. It's a kind of an academic conference, but with a twist, in that it is bringing together academics from Mexico, from Vietnam, from several cities in China, coming together to talk about different case studies in various sectors that they've been working on. So some of the research that they've been doing in very applied contexts, so in open energy, in data journalism, and in other areas associated with working with open data and local government.